Chapter 24. Angels, Angels Everywhere Near Death Experiencer Dr. George Ritchie, MD. Excerpted from Return from Tomorrow. Gradually I was becoming aware that there was something else on that plane of grappling forms. Almost from the beginning I had sensed it, but for a long time I could not locate it. When I did, it was with a shock that left me stunned. That entire unhappy plane was hovered over by beings seemingly made of light. It was their very size and blinding brightness that had prevented me at first from seeing them. Now that I adjusted my eyes to take them in, I could see that these immense presences were bending over the little creatures on the plane. Perhaps even conversing with them. Were these bright beings angels? Was the light beside me also an angel? But the thought that had pressed itself so undeniably on my mind in that little hospital room had been, "You are in the presence of the Son of God." Could it be that each of these other human wraiths, wretched and unworthy like me, was also in his presence? In a realm where space and time no longer followed any rules I knew, could he be standing with each of them as he was with me? I did not know. All I clearly saw was that not one of these bickering beings on the plane had been abandoned. They were being attended, watched over, ministered to. And the equally observable fact was that not one of them knew it. If Jesus or his angels were speaking to them, they certainly did not hear. There was no pause in the stream of rancor coming from their own hearts, their eyes sought only some nearby figure to humiliate. It would have seemed to me impossible not to be aware of what were the hugest and most striking features of that whole landscape, except that I myself had stared at them unseeing. In fact, now that I had become aware of these bright presences, I realized with bewilderment that I had been seeing them all along, without ever consciously registering the fact, as though Jesus could show me at any moment only so much as I was ready to see. Angels had crowded the living cities and towns we had visited. They had been present in the streets, the factories, the homes, even in that raucous bar, where nobody had been any more conscious of their existence than I myself had. And suddenly I realized that there was a common denominator to all these scenes so far. It was the failure to see Jesus. Whether it was a physical appetite, an earthly concern, an absorption with self, whatever got in the way of his light created the separation into which we stepped at death. Case 2. A wide glow and glint of lights near-death experiencer Linda Stewart. A curious manifestation after my near-death experience was that I began seeing a wide glow and glint of lights around people and objects. Because I had had so many physical anomalies during my illness, I assumed the lights were another, optical side effect of the illness. I was later shown that the lights were far more than that. As my health had slowly improved, I occasionally drove myself short distances to appointments. One day as I was driving down a busy street, I stopped at a red light and watched an odd scene unfold before me. A delivery truck had parked on the right side of the street about a half block ahead. The truck was one that opened from the sides rather than the back. I watched as the driver walked around to the traffic side of his truck and began unloading his cargo with oncoming traffic approaching. Inside my car, I said out loud in my little southern voice, "Oh honey, you shouldn't do that, it's dangerous." On this notable day, I watched, stunned, as the familiar dancing lights around the delivery man swirled, quickly coalescing into the form of a breathtaking, translucent, beautiful woman spirit, glowing with light. Perhaps it was because I had sent a loving and concerned thought about the delivery man's well-being that the spirit turned her loving gaze on me. For a brief moment, our eyes met. She smiled at me, then, hovering over the unsuspecting man, returned her attention to her charge, who was oblivious to the heavenly presence and was busily going about his business. I was thunderstruck, barely breathing for fear the vision would leave, and mesmerized by the vision, I was reluctant to take my eyes off the beauty of the scene. However, from my peripheral vision, I became aware of even more compelling lights. When I was able to tear myself away from the spirit, I glanced slowly at the vista around me, and everywhere I looked, every single person in my view had beautiful, loving spirits attending them. People walking nonchalantly down the sidewalk were accompanied by spirits. From within cars, unfettered by physical barriers, I could see the glow and form of beings around the occupants. I saw joggers with flutters of light streaking behind them as their spirit kept pace. As people entered and left buildings, light beings followed. The view before me was filled with brilliant, white light. From the limited understanding of my human mind, I struggled to comprehend the meaning of what I saw. I knew the lights were connected to the individual people, although more of them than with them, almost as if they were an extension of their existence, a light connection to an aspect of their higher self. The lights, a connection to the humans, which were glinting off the beings, were so bright and expansive, they interconnected, forming a sort of light grid. I remembered reports in books on the near-death experience of people seeing grids on the other side that they didn't know how to explain. As I looked at the network of light before me and felt the immense outpouring of love coming from the beings, I realized the connection of human beings to the beings of light was through love, and that the love itself was connected through this grid. The metaphor represented by the image I saw and perceived was absolutely clear, and I was overwhelmed with the knowledge that we are all one. I comprehended that our oneness is interconnected by love and is an available, much higher level and means of communication than we normally use, but to which we have access. This love is available to anyone who is willing to do the hard spiritual work that will allow us to open our hearts and minds and eyes to spirit. I remembered the love I had felt in the presence of God and experienced a total sense of love for all existence as an interconnected oneness and a manifestation of God. Over and over, this single truth was being driven home to me. Only God exists, God is everything. All that I gaze upon is a representation of God, not the physical mirage but rather, the shining brilliance behind the mask. I was startled back to everyday awareness by the blasting of a horn. I looked down at my speedometer and realized I was barely creeping forward in the car. With sheets of tears streaming down my face and all but blind with emotion, I pulled to the side of the road until I could take in all that I had witnessed and regain my composure. I don't know how long I sat, taking in the wonder of that event, but I couldn't move until the spectacular vision slowly dissipated, returning to the more familiar form of lights around the bodies of the people I watched. Soulmate, this is a part of Zindagi Ki Roshni consultancy. It has been established for those who have lost someone and for those who are very sad in their life. About 100 PDF books and 20 short audio books of this topic will be sent to those who join it. This data will be sent to their email or WhatsApp. If you want to join this organization, then please send WhatsApp message to this number.